Time for an AMA. You asked questions on Instagram and YouTube community posts, and I've got answers. So first up, what are your thoughts on Tennessee's new law for IMGs? For those who don't know, Tennessee passed this law, HB 1312, to address the physician shortage. It allows IMGs to come to Tennessee with a provisional license and not have to redo their residency, as is the norm right now in the US. That's a topic we're gonna cover in a future video because it is a bit complex and I can't fully answer that here, so that will be coming in a future video. Thanks for that. How feasible is a surgical residency if I wanna have ample time with family and kids? It's all relative, right? So one person may define ample time very differently from another person. I think most people would say in a surgical residency, you're not going to have ample time based on the fact you're spending 70, 80 hours a week on average in the hospital, sometimes more than that, sometimes less than that. What could help is depending on the arrangement you have with your partner. Are they staying at home and helping out more with the kids? Are they also working? Do you guys have a nanny? Overall, low likelihood to have ample time with family and kids in a surgical residency. In a non-surgical residency, much more likely. Favorite Dota 2 hero? I know Dota is a video game and that's about all I know. How do you or did you find time to do hobbies when they conflict with medicine? For example, with me, my jiu-jitsu gym hours conflict with my work and application schedule. Should I just give up on some hobbies for now? Yeah, you have priorities and you have to work around that. So going back to video games and hobbies, I loved StarCraft when I was in middle school and even a little bit in high school. And when I was in college, StarCraft 2 came out and I bought it in the summer or maybe right before the summer, but I also had to study for my MCAT. So because the MCAT is a much higher priority, I didn't even finish the single player campaign, which a lot of people said was too short. But based on the season in your life, you need to be able to shift your priorities. So jiu-jitsu, maybe practice at a different gym or decrease your total hours per week. There are priorities in life. And if you're really set on going to med school and you need to work on your application and some other work, then that should take priority. And then in a few months, then you can get back to jiu-jitsu or whatever your hobby is. What is the importance of research for matching into residency and what kind of research is the best for residency positions? Research is the one extracurricular where whatever you do in college and medical school will still help you in residency. Everything else is only applicable to that stage in training. So as a pre-med in college, when you're applying to medical school, if you do whatever clubs or activities, that's relevant to your medical school application, but it will not be relevant and will not be included in your residency application. Research is the exception. Any publications or abstracts or presentations that you have collected from college will be on your CV, on your application when you apply to residency. Unfortunately, it is quantity over quality. The bigger that list, the more impressive it is to the admissions committees for residency. With that being said, if you get published in Nature or some massive journal, Science, etc., then that is gonna hold a lot of weight. But unless it's a really top tier journal like that, you should probably focus more on quantity rather than quality, which I know sounds terrible because we already have so many junk publications being cranked out, but that's the game. And either you play the game and you use that to your advantage, or you say, hey, I don't want to do that, and your application may not be as competitive as a result. I've done different types of research. I did more basic science bench work when I was in college, and I did more clinical when I was in med school. Clinical is a lot easier to work through quickly and crank out publications, and you can do things on your own time, whereas with bench work, it's a much slower, laborious process. You have to go in physically. So I tend to lean more clinical, but there's a lot of strategy, and there are a lot of tactics and principles you can use to get a higher number of publications and abstracts and presentations to put on your CV with actually the same or less effort. And I think that's the biggest thing that I wish I knew sooner, because I would have had more publications with less effort. And I ended up having many publications. I think I applied to residency with like 60, and then in my first year of residency, some of those other pending items were published, and then now I have 65-ish. But we cover all of this in several hours of content, but it's very thorough and comprehensive. It's the ultimate research course at medschoolinsiders.com. It's me, it's Dr. Sean Anderson, it's Dr. Dipal Patel, and we each have different strengths and weaknesses, different areas of expertise, and we combined all of that into this single course. Super comprehensive. I wish I had something like this when I was in college or in med school, because there were many times when you feel that friction, and that it's not quite intimidation, it's procrastination, because there's a lot of friction in getting started with various types of research projects. And when you understand how each unit of effort translates into the final outcome and how to decrease those units of effort to be more efficient with it, then things just work better. And you guys can use Summer AMA for 20% off the research course until the end of the month. What's your learning/study advice for keeping a high GPA in undergrad, considering all of the foresight you've had since then? Most of us study terribly, atrociously in college, and we learn how to study better in medical school because we are forced to, because those poor study strategies in college won't work in med school anymore. It really comes down to active study techniques versus passive techniques, and we have a whole playlist on the Med School Insiders channel that goes over these various study strategies, the mistakes that most people make, how to use the active techniques properly. I say the biggest thing for me, looking back, would be stop rereading notes. That's a terrible way to study. I was doing a lot of practice questions for like organic chemistry and physics, so that was actually a good thing that I did. But when it came to more memorization heavy stuff and studying, I wish I did more active techniques, creating charts and comparisons, more Feynman technique, more flashcards, spaced repetition with active recall, and any practice questions I could find that were relevant to that course. It's generally easier to find practice questions in math, physics, chemistry, harder in other classes, but I would have spent more effort trying to find those practice questions. Does the impact and reputation of the journal you publish in as a med student or pre-med matter for med school apps or residency matching? Theoretically, yes. I would say it matters possibly more for residency because there are so many journals out there, and in a given specialty, the AdComs, they know, I mean, these are attending physicians in that specialty, so they know what are the high, mid, and low tier journals in that specialty. So for residency, it's arguably more important. So for plastic surgery, getting a publication in PRS, which is no Nature, no Science, but in the plastic surgery world is one of the top tier journals. Having publications there is much more impressive to the plastic surgery admissions committees for residency matching versus some of the lower tier, like Annals isn't even a lower tier. But anyways, the ones that are forgettable. But the reason for med school it may not matter as much is the person interviewing you, maybe they're an internal medicine doctor and they have no idea what PRS versus Annals versus whatever other plastic surgery journals are and how they rank. So overall, I would say always try to publish in the highest impact journal you can. But at the end of the day, I would focus more on quantity rather than quality, with the caveat of avoiding predatory journals and don't publish complete junk research. Like, it should be a decent peer-reviewed journal. What is your stance on quality versus quantity for med students and pre-meds with regards to research? Just covered that. How does having only 1 or 2 high-impact publications in reputable journals compared to having dozens of low-impact pubs in less well-known journals? So the practical and actionable advice here would be just work hard on what you have access to based on the opportunities around you. And as we cover in the research course, you can eventually create your own opportunities, but at the beginning, you have to work with what you have, right? Before you get more advanced and can create your own studies, et cetera, et cetera. That's a more advanced technique that very much impresses PIs and people that you want to write you letters because they'll be like, oh my God, this guy has such initiative and he created this project, and you make their job very easy. But again, that's a more advanced tactic in the research course. But the practical advice here is if you are working on a team with a very established lab, a lot of experience, and they are shooting for Nature, New England Journal of Medicine, and so on, then yeah, work on that. You're gonna get a lot of valuable experience and hopefully a publication out of that. But if you don't have access to that, and most people don't, then don't shy away from whatever other opportunities you do have that are gonna be in mid-tier journals, because those are still, having 3 mid-tier journal publications is still amazing, especially as a pre-med. Again, when you get to residency, you need to publish a lot more just based on the level of competition, the expectations. If you look at the average number of publications matching into any specialty or a lot of specialties, it's actually doubled in the last, I think, 8 years. We actually have a video coming out on the most competitive specialties, and we cover things like the increase in the number of publications that are expected by applicants. Is there a right time for dating? I never feel like I'm ready due to my busy schedule. I'd rather not put someone through a relationship if it means not spending as much time with them as they'd probably expect in a relationship. I don't think there is a right time for dating unless you aren't able to prioritize and compartmentalize your life in the way that you need to. Sometimes, especially younger people, they'll get so deeply involved in a relationship that everything else, their professional life, their academic life, completely suffers and falls off a cliff, and they'll drop out of college. And whatever future they had to become a doctor is completely gone now. But if that's not your problem, and if you are able to balance things and prioritize, then I don't think you need to wait until you have more time, because you can find a partner who's going to be okay with you spending a great deal of time working on your profession, working on your academics, working towards that goal. And there may be seasons to it, and you have to have some conversations with them. Say, hey, you know, for the next month, I'm on X rotation, I'm gonna be barely sleeping, et cetera, et cetera. And then that's not gonna be the rest of our lives, that's just for the next month. Most of the time, you're gonna have something that's a little bit more balanced. I think you can definitely date in college, you can definitely date in med school, you can definitely date in residency, and it's, at the very least, it's gonna be a learning experience for you. And hopefully, a lot more than that. How does going to an MD PhD program versus just an MD affect residency matching, especially for those seeking highly competitive specialties, plastics, derm, neurosurgery, etc.? Does having your PhD offer much of an advantage? If it does, how are you able to compete with MD PhD grads and match into plastics? I think there's a higher degree, I think the highest number of MD PhDs is neurosurgery, last I checked, unless that's changed in recent data. And it's not required. In any specialty, most people matching into that specialty are not MD PhD. Only do MD PhD if you want to do MD PhD, not as a way to make yourself more competitive for a competitive specialty. You also gotta remember there's a 4-year opportunity cost with PhD. Granted, you're not taking out the loans that you do in med school, because generally with an MSTP, you're getting a stipend. But 4 years is a long time, man. Only do it if you really want to. You can match into any specialty without a PhD. Nice Japan traveling. Yeah, man, I'm actually planning on going back for my birthday. We went in April, saw the Formula 1 Grand Prix. I loved it so much. I love the driving, the food. There's just so much to Japan that I love. And gonna go back and probably rent another Honda S660. If you guys like cars and driving and track days and all that stuff, I actually have another channel called Jabal and Cars where we do all that fun stuff. What places have you traveled and when, before and during med school especially? Before med school, I mean, as a kid, India, many times to visit family. Did a cruise, Disney cruise. I was a little bit too old though. I was in middle school, I think. And I was old enough where it was kind of lame. You know, it was like the playpens and stuff were lame, but you know, being on a cruise and eating food and seeing the different cities at the different ports was cool. I think we went to the Bahamas and such, but the Mickey Mouse and all that stuff was, I was like, dude, too old for that. And then also just like some places in the US, Hawaii, New York, before that. I started traveling a lot more during med school, especially the second half. So before step 2, I did a research month, and I think the first week before my dedicated period for step 2 was, we went to Zion National Park, me and like 8 classmates. It was a lot of fun, really enjoyed that. Hiked Angel's Landing and all that stuff. And then after that, before starting residency, you know, end of 4th year is the time when a lot of people travel. And I got very much into credit card churning, which is a way to use credit card points and fund a lot of flights and hotels. So I went to Berlin, Germany. I went to Bermuda. Well, I did a cruise. That was actually after step 1. Yeah, I did a cruise after step 1. Bermuda was my favorite island there. I did Cape Town, South Africa, and I did Bali. I feel fortunate to have done that. And even if you don't have the funds, don't worry, I didn't have the funds either. I'm not a proponent of blowing through loan money for stuff like that. I mean, yeah, when you travel and you have to eat and, you know, hotels and lodging, find cheap places, and yeah, you will use, I was using money that was loan money and, you know, money I had to live off of, but I saved tens of thousands of dollars by learning about churning and leveraging that. What tips do you have for preventing burnout and taking care of your mental health while in med school? We've covered this in dedicated videos on the Med School Insider channel. You can see this one right up here. What worked well for me was trying to sleep as much as I could, even when it was challenging and you have these demands, prioritize sleep. Exercising regularly. I would actually bike to and from campus as a way to get a lot of cardio in easily. And then I would do strength training 4 times a week on top of that. And having a good social support system. I had a couple close friends in med school, and I was also dating a girl. And those few things allowed me to push myself way harder and for way longer than I have before or since. Actually, that's not true. I guess in college, I pushed myself even harder because of, that was like health and a lot of anger and stuff about that. But yeah, those things in med school allowed me to do so in a more healthy way. Dating, not a question, so I don't know what to say to that. And for my fellow tea heads that are wondering, this is Tea Bloom, the Big Red Robe Oolong, which I like, although my favorite from them would be the White Tip Oolong and the Tea Guan Yin, which are, I mean, all 3 of these are oolongs, it's my favorite. And then also a Tea Bloom cup. So it's like insulated double wall so you don't burn yourself. and you can brew it in the same thing so you don't have multiple things you gotta wash. Anyways, this is what I use on a daily basis. And if you like tea, you want some tea yourself, then use code Jabal for 10% off at Tea Bloom's website. Summers or winters, which one do you prefer? Definitely summers because I like being active. Are you planning on going back to plastics? Would you ever consider doing residency again? Nope. I'm torn picking between 3 specialties. How did you narrow it down? Get exposure to it. It really comes down to that. First of all, educate yourself because getting exposure is easier said than done. So educate yourself. We have day in the life episodes on this channel, and we have So You Want to Be episodes on the Med School Insider channel that break down specialties so you can understand it beyond what the popular culture narrative is about that specialty or what TV shows show you. Those are much more realistic representations that will help you educate yourself. But ultimately, spending time shadowing or doing research in that field is gonna show you what it's actually like. And that's the best way to figure out what's right for you because 50% of matriculating medical students change their mind about their specialty from when they first start med school to when they actually graduate and apply to residency. What's your dream car? Unattainable, McLaren F1, the greatest road car ever built, and hopefully one day attainable dream car, maybe a 997.2 GT3. For the gearheads out there, I actually reviewed the 3.8 and the 4.0 997.2 GT3s in a 3-way comparison. That was peak. That was peak car review for me. What's the worst mistake a pre-med student should avoid? Probably cheating or getting kicked out of school. Those are pretty big. We have helped people at Med School Insiders that were caught cheating and had disciplinary action, and we did help them get into med school, but it takes a lot of work, and you're gonna have to change your target schools and what the kind of programs you're hoping to get into. How do you face bullying, neglect, and other hardships in residency right? What's always helped me in difficult situations where I don't know how to act or I'm tempted to act in a way that I know I might regret in the future, a more emotional way, right? Is to ask myself, how would I like to explain to someone else if this became a story that I told, right? If I had to tell someone else X, Y, and Z happened, how would I act right now such that I don't feel any shame or regret or guilt when I tell that story? And that hasn't let me down since. Any regrets during undergrad, any advice for current undergrads? If you get your study strategies and techniques down now, there are it's like that's the lead domino that makes everything else easier. Not only better grades and less stress, which is the most immediate and obvious benefit, but you'll spend less time studying, you'll have more time for other things, you'll get more sleep, you'll have more time for exercise, you'll have more time for socializing and your hobbies. It's the lead domino that makes everything else easier as a pre-med. Get your study strategies right. Med School Insiders study playlist, that's where you should go. Started later and nervous about applying to medical school at 30, any advice? There were people that started med school in, I think their late 30s or early 40s in my class. There were 3 students out of a class of 125 that were like 38 to 41, 42, something like that. You actually have several unique advantages coming in as a non-traditional student and having more life experience. Much more maturity, several experiences that people, 10, 8 years younger than you don't have. And you can leverage that to make yourself a much stronger candidate. And as long as you know what you're getting yourself into and how that's going to affect your life time-wise, because it's gonna be 4 years of med school plus at least 3 years of residency, then you can crush it. And there have been many, many, many people before you that have started med school at a later age than you and have been successful. So don't doubt yourself. Can you make a video on how to study when you are behind in class? We've done some about like cramming, last-minute studying when you are behind because things happen, we all procrastinate. What you should do, and you can find that video linked below. Any tips to stay focused and maximize productivity for step 2 dedicated? Well, now step 1 is pass fail, so step 2 CK is the big test. If you watch the video I made on Med School Insiders about how I approach step 1 dedicated, that's what I would do now for step 2 CK dedicated. It's essentially the same techniques. The test is slightly different. It's now a little bit more clinical, a little bit more difficult than step 1, but I would use the same strategy. You want to be very structured with your time. You want to rely very heavily on high quality practice questions, things like UWorld, and not just doing the questions, but taking a lot of time, spending more time actually reviewing the questions and learning from the explanations and plugging in your gaps in knowledge rather than just doing the actual questions. So you can find the videos on how I studied for both step 1 and step 2 linked in the description. And even though I only studied for about 3 weeks for step 2 CK, because remember back then step 1 was still graded, or scored I should say, the techniques are very similar, and if you work hard on step 1 and do well during your 3rd year clerkships, that actually builds a very strong foundation so that you're starting off already at a pretty high point when you start studying for step 2. So I ended up with a 267 on step 2, and I remember thinking that I already was starting off at a higher point than I expected coming in, because towards the beginning of that study period of 3-ish weeks, I was already hitting the high 250s. Was there ever a point you considered coming back to clinical medicine? Not in the traditional sense. I don't want to do a full residency. But seeing Peter Attia's practice, his longevity-focused practice, and he didn't finish any residency. All he needs was his medical license and no residency, no board certification. He dropped out of general surgery residency, and he now has this amazing practice. I find that kind of work very fascinating, very intriguing, very exciting, but there's just so many other things that I'm trying to do right now too, and that I want to do more than that. So, I mean, who knows, maybe in 10, 15 years, I do go back to clinical medicine in some way, but right now I don't see it happening anytime soon. Do you ever think about how your life would have been like if you were working as a doctor? Yeah, a few times at milestones. So when I see friends graduating residency, I'm like, oh yeah, wow, I started the same year as them. I would have been finishing right now too. And it's such a mind fuck to talk to them, you know, your co-residents and such, and see where they're at and what their next steps are and how they feel about residency, because 6 years is a long time, right? You change a lot in 6 years. And I think it's really cool to see those who have deepened their love and passion for a specialty and want to pursue things even further as a subspecialist. But then you see the others who get a little bit burnt out and are more cynical than when they first entered residency. And I don't know where I would be. Would I be more on the former or the latter side? But the thing I'm the most grateful for is that with this new path, I can really focus on my health, because I'm pretty confident that if I stuck with residency, I would have had many more ups and downs with my health, just based on the demands with your sleep, and your lifestyle is going to be compromised in a surgical residency. And for someone that has IBD, when things have gotten a little bit shaky, I can really focus on that, sleep more, and prioritize my nutrition and even get help when I need it. So very grateful for that. Something you did that you are proud of the most. Dina always coming in with the fire questions. She has been asking questions for years, and thanks for following for so long, and also for asking such thoughtful and thought-provoking questions. It's really awesome to answer your questions. It's not a single achievement or accomplishment. It's more that I am proud of making the most of the hand that I was dealt. And I think that's all you can really ask for. I think there's things that I can definitely do better, and I'm not perfect, and I'm still working on a lot of things. But when I look back at the hand I was dealt, whether that was my upbringing, or the health issues, or some of the setbacks, I think I handled a lot of those in a way that I'm proud of, and that when I face challenging times now, I think back to those times and say, hey, I've gone through a lot worse. And if I could handle that stuff, this is gonna be a piece of cake. And I don't mean that in the success sense or the professional academic achievement sense. That is part of it, right? Because one thing as a society that we don't really acknowledge enough is that there are levels of privilege. We pretend that there's just the ultra wealthy and then the rest of us, but there's such a gradient there. And people that, a lot of people my age that have homes, they had their college med school paid off, or they had help with the down payment, or sometimes a combination of all of those things. So that is part of it. But I think what's more important is developing one's character. And I think that happens through setbacks and challenges. And how do you deal with the inevitable challenges that, fair or not, come your way, whether that's health or financial or other things that just aren't fair in life. How do you make the most of that? And again, not perfect, still working on a lot of things, but I oftentimes will use that to remind myself, hey, I've gone through worse, I can deal with this, and I'm proud of how I played the cards that I was dealt. How did you balance a YouTube channel with med school? I didn't. I started the med school channel at the very end of med school, during fourth year, which is the easiest year. How competitive is general surgery as a residency? We just crunched the data for the 2024 charting outcomes from the NRMP, and we are currently working on a new video ranking all the most competitive specialties, so keep an eye out for that. What do we use for Med School Insiders animations? This is another one that we get asked very commonly in the comment section on YouTube. We use a combination of Powtoon plus Adobe Premiere Pro. And it's been an evolution, right? So at the very beginning, it was literally just me drawing on a piece of paper, but the current version is that combination of Powtoons and Premiere Pro. So for those who want to create their own animated faceless YouTube channel, or if you need to do so for work or some other obligation, then I'd recommend you check those out, and you can find a link down in the description. Med School 10 for 10% off any Powtoon subscription. I'll trade you an R34 GTR car review for Step 1 tutoring. My guy, if you're on the West Coast, get in touch. I would love to review an R34 GTR. Not sure about the Step 1 tutoring trade though. As a GP with ambitions, pros and cons of directly pursuing entrepreneurship over a specialty. As a GP, I'm not sure if you mean pursuing a specialty, like, would that be you already are able to practice as a GP and then you would want to further subspecialize, or does this mean right after med school don't even do a residency? Because if that's the case, whether or not to do a residency, we have a video on that which covers the various options if you don't want to do clinical medicine. But if you already are a GP, then the great thing is you have that fallback and you're reducing a lot of that risk. So you can pursue entrepreneurship. I wouldn't just go 0 on GP and 100% entrepreneurship. I would say keep doing your GP role and do entrepreneurship on the side as a side hustle, build it up until it becomes something that can sustain you. And then you're in the position of choosing, where do you want to spend more time? And do you want to decrease your GP hours and spend more time on entrepreneurship and grow that? Or do you like this 50-50 balance, or whatever balance you make? Have you kept contact with past schools like your med program to speak there, or want to? Yeah, actually I had a call with UCSD School of Medicine, some people there maybe a month or two ago, working on various projects, not Med School Insiders related, maybe tangentially actually. And as for speaking, I have found myself enjoying speaking engagements more than I expected, because when I was younger, I hated public speaking, but nowadays I do find it enjoyable. I don't want to do it super often, but a couple times per year, I have been enjoying it. Do you have any study course for USMLE? We don't, but we do offer Step 1 and Step 2 and Step 3 tutoring on medschoolinsiders.com. I'm a pre-med student at Western University, Ontario, Canada. What are the chances of getting into US med schools? Well, we actually have helped a lot of Canadians get into US medical schools, and also Canadian medical students get into US residencies. So that's something that the team at medschoolinsiders.com has experience with. As for your chances, I can't really say. I mean, we can talk about the statistics of it, but as we like to say, statistics apply to populations, not to individuals. So depending on how competitive you are as an applicant, your odds can go up or down from there. And also not just how competitive you are, but how you convey yourself, the narrative you put into your application, how you convey yourself during your interviews, all those things. And by the way, we have this awesome new interview AI course, which we just launched, which is giving you the simulated interview experience, and it'll even coach you on your eye contact and your body language and your tone and how you say things, plus what you say, right? So what you say and how you say it, and very excited about that. But yeah, overall, getting into a US med school as a Canadian pre-med is definitely possible. And one thing that might help, if you're early on in your pre-med journey there, I would say focus on being the strongest candidate that you can be. And if you're interested in research, you can get involved with research remotely with US schools, US programs, build your connections in the US, especially with things like clinical research. And again, Ultimate Research course covers all that. How can I match plastics if my grades aren't the best and I don't have research pubs? Well, first of all, you can very quickly change the research publication issue, right? And again, Ultimate Research course for that. As for grades, if you're talking about Step 2, you're kind of stuck with that. You're not gonna retake Step 2. As for your clinical rotations, work very hard to get good evaluations, and then also study hard for your shelf exams so you can get the highest score and honor whatever you can honor. If your grades are already set in stone, then focus on your research and consider doing 1 or 2 research years to build your CV, build your connections, and that will make you a more competitive candidate. But you'll have to speak to someone to see, is that realistic? Because if you have a 225 and you didn't honor any of your rotations, even with a lot of research and a lot of connections, it's going to be very, very challenging and rather unlikely. Break down your streams of income. Mem, our MCAT flashcard app, Med School Insiders. The YouTube channel actually loses money because we have a whole team and our YouTube revenue has declined over the last several years. But the YouTube channel helps to promote our website, obviously, and that is a net positive, and that's where we get most of our revenue is from selling courses and services on the website. Jabal and Cars is my car YouTube channel, which loses money on every video. I've talked about the finances on that channel pretty openly. I think we spend about $2,000 to $2,500 per month to run the channel, just for the team, not including my travel expenses and gas and whatever. But we make about $1,100 per month. So I'm still $1,100 is a lot better than zero, but trying to get to that break-even point would be great. This channel, the personal brand, we do sponsorships, we have Google AdSense, and it doesn't bring in that much. Most of my income comes from Med School Insiders. Thoughts on occupational medicine as a specialty? They're rarely spoken about. You're totally right. I don't think that we've covered it at all on this channel or on Med School Insiders, and we should. So I'll share that with my team on possibly doing a So You Want to Be episode on that specialty or covering it in another video where it fits. Aura Ring versus Ultrahuman Air versus Ring-Con Gen 2. We did a 3-way comparison with Ring-Con Gen 1. I just got the Gen 2 maybe a month or two ago, so I'm still doing testing. Short story, all 3 are solid options. There are pros and cons to each, but other companies have sent me rings. I'm not gonna name those companies, but they're a lot smaller and you may have not even heard of them. Complete dog shit garbage that is not useful at all. So I don't even wear those. I only wear really these 3, and I'm testing one other ring that seems decent. But there are a few other rings that have been sent to me that I don't even wear because they're so bad. Please make a video on the new 2024 NRMP match data for MD DO seniors. Yes, it is coming. We're currently working on it. Why you stopped uploading the specialty related videos like Why I Did, Day in the Life, Ranking Specialties. Ranking Specialties was just a funny joke that I think some people took a little bit too seriously. Day in the Life, I only have time to do maybe 1 or 2 per year because they take so much time and effort to go out and film. The whole editing process, it's a huge heavy lift. Why I Did, we just weren't seeing much traction with the Why I Did. We see a lot more traction with Why I Didn't. And with Why I Did, I bring someone to my house, we ask them questions, why they chose their specialty, give you a bit more insight, but for whatever reason, it looks like the audience isn't valuing those as much as we expected. Advice you wish you knew in your 20s that you now know. I did this video on MSI, 7 regrets of my 20s, I think, and I also did one on this channel, linked below. That's gonna give you a much more thorough answer. But right now, off the top of my head, first would be exercise more, because comparing yourself to the average American and being proud of exercising 5, 6, maybe 7 hours a week, it's good, it's very good, but it's not enough for the goals that I have. So I wish I was doing more. I wish I was dating more in college, but then, I had a lot of health issues and my priorities were very different. So maybe that's not a realistic thing. And facing my fears earlier and more head on, things like public speaking. But again, several more in those other videos where I've spent the time and sat down and scripted things. What can I do to increase chances of matching into general surgery as a non-US IMG? First, be as competitive as you can on paper. That means your stats, your board scores, your clinical grades, and also publications, right? Research is a huge multiplier for IMGs we've seen. A big part of that, of course, being that having more abstracts, presentations, publications makes you a more competitive candidate just on paper, but also you're generating connections while doing so. And hopefully you're doing that research with people in the US. Oftentimes doing 1 or 2 years of a research fellowship in the US in person can be very, very beneficial. And again, our ultimate research course, coupon code in the description, is gonna help you with a lot of that. What are the chances of an FMG IMG matching into plastic surgery? Similar answer to the prior question, which is that I've seen many people actually do that, but most of them had to take 1 or 2 years to do research, some even more actually. So being as competitive as you can be on paper helps a lot, but then crafting a really killer application, really impressive personal statement, really impressive narrative, and the story about your overarching narrative of the application has to be very compelling, and having those connections as well. And if you need help with any of that, that's what we specialize in at medschoolinsiders.com. Any advice on overcoming severe procrastination and not studying when you need to be? If Pomodoro technique still seems intimidating because working on it for 25 minutes is like, I don't want to do that, then telling yourself just 5 minutes. Start it for just 5 minutes, and that reduces the activation energy. You'll get started, and after 5 minutes, you'll realize, hey, it's not so bad, I can do more. Second thing is music that you enjoy, kind of hypes you up, makes it less tedious, less dull, a little bit more enjoyable. And third thing would be caffeine. And I like tea more so than coffee because you don't get the jitters. How do you keep your skin looking youthful? I don't know if my skin looks youthful, man. I get a lot of comments about how I have these deep bags under my eyes ever since high school. And ever since I started doing these various scalp treatments, I've been getting more acne up here because with sweat and whatever over the course of the day, some of that serum will come down here and irritate the skin a little bit. But I am switching to a new serum very soon after I do a washout period. I'm actually doing no hair loss serum for 1 month, testing various hormones, and then starting a new one. But I do have a skincare routine which is largely inspired by a few female friends who have taught me things over the years. So wash with a gentle cleanser morning and night, and then using a toner with hyaluronic acid to trap in the moisture because I tend to have very dry skin, and then moisturizing on top of that. And I use tretinoin on my skin every night as well. And of course, very, very strict with good sunscreen usage. Anytime I cycle or hike or I'm outdoors for prolonged periods, very good about that ever since med school after seeing more than enough skin cancers to motivate me to hopefully never get skin cancer. Is exercise, sleep, or diet more important for maintaining good health in your opinion? It's hard to answer that because it's also relative. It depends on what your starting point is. No one is like a 0 out of 10 on any of those 3 domains, right? And most people are not 10 out of 10s. So from my experience, I would say that sleep is probably the most important lead domino because when sleep is dialed in, it's a lot easier to make better nutritional choices. When you're sleep deprived, it's much easier to get tempted by junky, carbohydrate-heavy food, and I've learned a lot about that with wearing a CGM thanks to Levels, which I've talked about many times on this channel. But there's actual science to support that you will actually have less nutritional discipline, if you want to call it that, when you are sleep deprived versus when you sleep well. Second, I would say is exercise, because when I'm exercising well and really on top of things, I am motivated to eat cleaner because I want to see the results of my exercise. I want to recover as well as possible. I want to lose some body fat. So I would say for me, it's sleep, exercise, diet, but I think all 3 are important, and it depends on your relative strengths and weaknesses. If you're already pretty dialed in with your exercise, then maybe you need to focus more on your diet. Do you still like tea more than coffee? My girlfriend is really big on coffee, and I have been drinking a lot more coffee with her, especially when we travel. And I've become kind of a basic bitch and I love my lattes now. But when I'm at home, I don't drink coffee. I drink tea exclusively. I think it gives me this calm, focused state, no jitteriness, although I do love the smell and taste of coffee as well. Since you are a huge tea drinker, are there any brands you recommend? I tried a few. There's a really popular one called Uncensored on Reddit, which, if I'm being honest, I think is a little bit overrated. I bought a lot from them, and some of them are good and some of them are not. And based on the recommendations on Reddit, I got a lot of the ones that were recommended, but again, it's a mixed bag. So very cheap from Uncensored, which I like, but mixed bag in terms of quality and taste. And quality is not just taste, it's also how do you feel? As you drink more tea, you'll get greater insight into how you feel when you drink a tea, and also how many steeps can you do before it tires out. Higher quality teas you can steep many, many times, whereas the lower quality teas you can't. I've gotten a lot of tea from Tea and Whisk here in Vegas. We do have a special coupon code for them, linked in the description, and then of course, Tea Bloom, who I mentioned earlier in this video too, special coupon code and link in the description for them as well. I now essentially get all my tea from either Tea and Whisk or Tea Bloom. What are your personal top 5 favorite specialties? Would that mean the ones that I would most want to do? Plastics, ENT. After that, it's a lot harder to say. Maybe ortho, because I would probably do hand after ortho residency. Neurosurgery, probably not in the top 5. Maybe urology as well. And the final one, let's throw in something non-surgical. Either anesthesiology or emergency medicine, just to give me a better lifestyle, to have more time for like a side hustle if I was a full-time clinician. I feel like Kevin's been hating on medicine so hard ever since quitting. We get it. It's not perfect. However, he has to remind us at least once a month by making a video about the negative aspects. Could be me, but I low-key feel like he's still trying to justify his decision of quitting. I really love the other videos, but I'm tired of these ones. And bro decided to be a YouTuber instead of finish his dream of becoming a doctor, and now just makes videos bitching about the healthcare system, and instead of taking the opportunity, he had to change it. I appreciate the feedback. I think we've been doing a lot of reaction videos to things that tend to be more negative bias, right? Because there is a negativity bias that humans have, and those videos tend to perform better on YouTube, especially when you're reacting to something that is highlighting issues in any field, whether it's medicine or something else. But no, I would definitely not say that I need to justify my decision of quitting at all. That's a personal thing, and I've already explained myself. And if people like it, cool. And if they don't, I really couldn't care less. But yeah, I do appreciate the feedback. We'll be more mindful of that. I think a lot of that is based on the number of reaction videos we've done recently. But beyond that, I'll talk to the team. We want to make sure that we always strive to give a very accurate representation of medicine. And I do think medicine is spoken about very highly for the most part, and the reality is somewhere in the middle. I've said this before, that if 100 people want to go and become doctors, maybe 75 of them would be happy, but 25 wouldn't. So we want to give the full accurate picture so that those 75 can say, yes, I would be happy, I want to proceed. And those 25 can say, okay, thanks for informing me, and now I can make a better informed decision. So with that in mind, I'll speak with the team and make sure that we're giving an accurate representation and not just hating on medicine, because that's definitely not how I feel about medicine. I mean, my business helps people become doctors that want to become doctors, right? So that would be very backwards and against my own self-interest if I was trying to just say medicine is terrible. I want people to have an accurate and real understanding of what it is and what it's not. When do applications close for this year's Med School Insider Scholarship? I couldn't apply last year. We're actually running our Balance and Wellness Scholarship this fall, and qualifying students can earn $5,000 worth of Med School Insider services. You can learn more at medschoolinsiders.com/scholarship. I would love to take the MCAT course, but I can't afford it at the moment. Do you guys offer any discounts? So for our courses, we do offer very steep discounts if you can demonstrate financial need. And we have a form that asks you some questions and it requires some proof, but very substantial discounts, greater than 50%. We can't do the same for our services, but MCAT course, research course, interview AI course, we can apply it there. The reason we can't do it for services is that we have very high overhead for that, because we're paying actual physicians to provide those services. What are you most excited about this year? Personally, I've bought 2 new cars. One is the Lotus Emira, one is the Mazda Miata. Both happened this year. And if you're a car head, then Jabon Cars, you know where to find that. And I'm also taking sim racing a little bit more seriously. Been doing much more of that this year than any year before. As for the professional side, I've been doing a lot more advising with other companies. So one of those companies you'll actually hear about on this channel in the next couple months. And the other company you won't hear about, but they are in the medical education space. Very exciting stuff. They're leveraging AI well beyond its current uses, and what they've built is very sophisticated, very impressive. So the earliest model was actually for Casper AI, where this AI tool would generate questions for you, and then as you answer it, it will give you feedback based on how you communicate. So not just what you say, but how you say it as well. Your facial expressions, your tone, do you have any bias, things like that. And it's helped people go from the first quartile to the 4th quartile. That's the lowest quartile to the highest quartile after using this course. So we're very, very excited about that. They've now taken that technology and they created this new company, and it's actually a Y Combinator right now. Very exciting stuff. And that is now taking it to the next level. And part of that taking it to the next level is having interactions, speaking with this AI tool that is simulating a patient or an interviewer, things like that. So you can actually see that newer, improved version of the AI where you can have a conversation with it, and it still will coach you on what you're saying and how you say it, give you a lot of feedback on that. And that's in our new Interview AI course, which simulates both traditional interviews and MMIs, and it's unlimited scenarios, gives you very thorough, actionable feedback on how to improve. So I think that is a massive step in improving someone's performance on both the medical school and residency interviews. And because it's this tool, you can use it as much as you want, you get unlimited scenarios, right? So it's way more cost effective than paying a doctor. You can actually work with a doctor one-on-one at Med School Insiders as well. We do mock interviews, but you're paying for each hour of a mock interview, whereas with the interview course, you pay once and you get unlimited, and you're still getting incredibly personalized and actionable feedback and advice. So very excited about not only the Interview AI course, but also where these guys are taking the company beyond that. And I'll be sharing some more exciting updates about that in the near future. Are there learnings you find yourself revisiting more than once? You guys have some great thought-provoking questions. It was so strange to me that I didn't have to be anywhere at any time. And it was this adjustment period that lasted a couple of years where it felt strange from time to time to have complete control of my time. And I remember something that was coming up then, which was there is no then, there is no later. There is no I will be happy when, or things will be really cool when, or oh my God, I'm so excited when. It's this moment right now is life. Life doesn't happen in the future. Life happens right now, which is cliche, I get it. But when it hit me, it was understanding that if I wasn't enjoying the current moments, that likely means I'm not going to be enjoying the future moments either. So if I don't enjoy the current moment, I need to change things such that I do enjoy the current moment. And what that translates to me is pursuing things that you enjoy. For exercise, I'm only going to do exercise that I actually enjoy. One thing that I've been playing around with recently is pickleball, which is a lot of fun, a lot more fun than I was expecting. I haven't played much team sports since graduating from grade school. Team sports are amazing. I think the work I do is pretty dope. Doing YouTube videos is a lot of fun. The business of helping people get into med school and into residency and getting the messages especially back of the appreciation, of the celebration, of the wow, look what I've done, thanks so much for your help. That feels really good, the impact there. But bigger picture, it's also reminding yourself to be grateful and keep things in perspective. So when you have a tough day or when you feel sick, I've actually had a very rocky year health-wise. I've gotten significantly ill 4 separate times. One of them was GI, the other 3 were upper respiratory. And I'm like, what is going on? Partially due to travel, partially due to eating some probably old cheese that a relative was keeping at their house that they didn't want to throw away for whatever reason. Actually had to go to the ED for that one. That one was really not fun. But in those moments, like when I'm sick, when my health is suffering, I get so frustrated, and especially if it's happened multiple times, like 4 times in 8 months, it's very easy to grow frustrated. But then reminding yourself, hey, this is just temporary, zoom out, appreciate that you're sick and not having to go into a surgical residency right now. You're sick, but you have control of your time and you can sleep more if you need. You're sick, but you have your girlfriend and mom nearby who are able to help you. Like, there's all these things to be grateful for and keep things in perspective when stuff gets challenging. Dr. Jabal has conflicting parts to him. One hand, encourage people to take care of the mental and emotional health, toxicities in healthcare, but the alpha competitive persona that you see during med school seems to still stick with him. Not just this video, other times, frustration about people who are open about their weakness. That's just life. It's moral posturing, contrasting off someone softer or weaker to create the image of looking stronger. Appreciate Gooby's perspective, taking burden of the white knight ceiling off the backs of doctors. You don't have to cosplay being strong for the sake of it. Being courageous to call a spade of the healthcare shit show. Okay, thoughtful comment. I always appreciate thoughtful comments, but I think there's a false dichotomy here that I don't agree with. I think the truth to most things in life is somewhere in the middle. So mental health is important, but so is resilience. I am very competitive. I do believe in individuals taking responsibility and agency for the things that happen in their life. It doesn't mean it's your fault, but it is your responsibility. So when I push back on that, it's normally when I feel like someone is being a victim. I know there have been some reaction videos where maybe I'm being a little bit harsh or a little bit unfiltered. And it's like, hey, if you missed the mark by 1 point, then you missed the mark by 1 point. Like, that's just, those were the rules, right? You knew that going in. So yeah, I would disagree with this. I think that I strive to find a middle ground, and everyone's gonna have a different point which they believe is appropriate for their middle ground. And for me, maybe I'm further one way than the other for this individual who's leaving this comment. What we need to be very careful of is not becoming victims in the process. And with social media, it's almost like the victim Olympics, where people just want to talk about how they have things worse and they're such a victim and woe is me and give me sympathy points, which I'm very much against. And I have faced my fair share of struggles and setbacks, but you never see me approaching it as, hey, woe is me. I had a very tough upbringing. I've had health issues. I've had blah, blah, blah. And I don't say that as, oh my God, my life is so tough. Guys, this is unfair. I said, hey guys, it helped me when I saw someone who had IBD who really thrived in their career. And I want to tell other people that, hey, I have IBD, I have X, Y, and Z challenges, and I'm doing okay, and you can too. As for Dr. Gooby's video, I think it is receiving a ton of positive attention from lay people, because when you have someone in the industry calling out that industry and, oh my God, it's a scam, and oh my God, it's this industrial complex that's working against us and blah, blah, blah. Things are never black and white, and Gooby's video went way too far in that direction. And you look at the actual comments from real physicians, you talk to real physicians in real life, And they'll say, yeah, like there are valid points there, but he totally misrepresented it. So I have another reaction video coming out where I explain that further. Is it an imperfect system? Is it flawed? Absolutely, but the cons of a corrupt system and the moral conflicts it keeps producing outweigh the benefits of a professional field that doesn't even produce long-term quality life dividends. Okay, a lot of word salad there trying to sound smart, but bro, like the benefits of medicine 2.0, this is the current generation of medicine. We're trying to work towards medicine 3.0. That's a whole nother video that will have gone live actually. Medicine 3.0 covered in Peter Attia's book summary right up here. But no, the benefits of medicine 2.0 are far greater than the costs of medicine 2.0. And it's not a perfect system, but those who say that it causes more cost than benefit, more downside than upside, are just delusional. And they don't even understand how far modern medicine has taken us. All right, guys, much love. Thanks for the questions. And until next time.